Hello and welcome to Access Chat. I'm delighted that we are welcoming back Frances West, author, founder of Frances West Co., former Chief Accessibility Officer at IBM, and also Claire Chang, who is the founder of Technoir International, and between them, they're co-founders of the APAC Authentic Inclusion Association. So welcome back, Frances. Welcome, Claire. Frances, if you'd like to go first and briefly reintroduce yourselves for those of our audience that have not been with us for so many years, because we've had you on a few times, but it's been a while.
I know. Well, first, thank you, Neil, Antonio, and Deborah Rue for inviting me and Claire to this show. I feel like I'm. It's almost like a reunion. You know, I think I was one of your early interviewee, and it's just amazing how time passed. Yeah, just a quick introduction. I'm Frances West. I'm the founder of Frances West & Co. We are a global strategy advisory company working all the way with national or international organizations like United Nations to private sectors, enterprise customers to startups. And our focus is really how to embed the concept of authentic inclusion into the C-suite business strategy, and it becomes a must-do imperatives. And then the way that we approach it is through our working experience. Like Neil mentioned, I spent 37 years at IBM, so learned a few things, how to operationalize a concept like accessibility or digital inclusion with strategy framework and also with repeatable, process and all that. But I'm most excited is to really take this digital inclusion global. And right now I'm working with Taiwan, and Claire is the leader in Taiwan to help, not just to seed, but to also promote this digital inclusion and the disability industry construct. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire and have her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me today. And thank you for the organizers. I'm Claire. I'm the technology innovation strategy consultant, and my company, Technoir, is a market research-driven strategy consulting and event organization company. So in the past few years, we helped the startups and small business in translating their technology from concept to prototype and providing guidance for commercialization. From there, we have more passion and focus on like fashion technology and IoT related, which could support our life to have a better quality. So I'm also the board member for La French Tech Taiwan, and I'm the lead for the diversity and the inclusion division, which will support women in tech in Taiwan a lot. Also, that we co-founded the APAC Authentic Inclusion Association, which is new, and we started from this year. We hope that we can use the people-centric technology to make our life more accessible and the information barrier-free. Yeah, so that is a basic background about myself and the organization. Thank you.
So I think we can start with there. So if we look to the APAC Authentic Inclusion organization that you just mentioned, what are your priorities now? What is in the top of your mind?
Yeah, I think that we have, of course, there are so wide range of the topic that we can work on. But for now, we are more focused on the first thing is the digital inclusion and accessibility. The second is that we are because of Taiwan is entering to the super age era next year, which is 4 times faster than any other country in the world. So, well, in the past few years, our government is always talking about, we need a long-term care assistant kind of thing, or we are talking about a healthcare, but not so many people talking about accessibility and how to support people, especially we use electronic devices every day. Mm-hmm. And no one was thinking about that. And also one thing is that Taiwan is trying to promote the remote healthcare system, but they don't really think about the digital gap between the city and the countryside, which they just don't think about that. They only think about the hardware, the infrastructure, but they don't think about the content. That is something we want to address and we want to work on with all the society, all the community here in Taiwan to support that.
Yeah, maybe I could just add to a little bit to what Claire said. Yes, we absolutely see like she mentioned, the use cases emerging very quickly on the aging side. And how do you use technology to provide care, right? With diminishing birth rate and over 25% of your population over 65 in the super age country, this is going to be a common issue for everybody. But the question about what will be our focus, we are hoping that, a lot of time people talk about technology, inclusion, and this and that, but how do you do that? We think it's actually very important to have a strategy and also to really involve, actual education and training. And that's why we hope to have a kind of a partnership with organizations like IAAP, International Association of Accessibility Professionals, because we think that it is very important from the get-go for any country or any place or any geography that wants to embrace digital inclusion authentically. Then they have to learn about it. They have to pay some dues and have that knowledge. Then you can really create the impact that we all think that's needed.
Deborah, I know you had a question.
Yes, I did. And first of all, I want to say, I wanted to also mention that Frances was the first female chief accessibility officer in the world. So as a woman, I just wanted to say yay about that. Right, because I was so hopeful when we created that position. And then I was a little discouraged that brands have not really owned that position, but that's okay too. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that, Frances. And as you know, as one of my partners at Billion Strong, I really believe that we've got to come together really authentically, using your word, and really be seen. And often I do not see enough diversity from Asia Pac in these conversations. And so I just think that it's really important that it be localized from people that really understand, just using Taiwan, for example, people that understand the culture, people that have lived there, people that really get what the other people need, want, they're thinking. And so I'm actually excited about it because I think it is something that that's one area that I think there's so much innovation happening. And then I, like you, am also supporting the aging conversations because the communities, as we've always said, Frances, we have a lot of common needs. And so I just think we need to see more of these kind of efforts. And so I applaud you and Claire for doing it because it really is about thinking about doing these things in a different way. We can keep trying to do it exactly the way we've all been doing it, but we're not really. I see, if anything, one thing that's happening that is troubling is that a lot of the conversations are being held by Westerners, people that look like me. And by the way, people that look like me, we add value to the conversations, but where are the younger people? What kind of legacy are we building here? Which you mentioned, Frances, even before we came on. air. And so you said that's one reason why you've been working with Claire. You see the leadership with Claire. So I just wanted to applaud what you're doing. And I'm really glad that we're talking about it on Access Chat, because we have to make these conversations applicable to the areas where we want them to include us. We can't just always use the language that we've been using that's not working. So I know you want to make a comment. Let me pass it to you, Francis, and Antonio also has a comment after you're finished.
Well, I just thank you again. I mean, to me, having the local own it and want it is the key, right? I mean, it's very interesting because my book actually will be translated into Chinese, and just through the translation process, you talked about language. It's very nuanced. I learned so much in choosing certain words, even though I read Chinese, but I haven't been back in China, in Taiwan for over 50, 60 years. So my Chinese is like, really at the middle school level. So the whole journey has been very helpful. And also, even though it's Chinese, but, the nuances of the language, how it's articulated in place like Hong Kong or Taiwan or China are all very different. So that's why, number one, you got to have the local be part of this. And number two, because we're in the beginning of forming the board, all the board members are clear age or younger, right? So it's really exciting. I'm the aging representative. So there's only one or two of us, right? The rest of them are all in their prime. They are they're the next generation. So if we really want this, the movement to take hold, I mean, at least for me, that's the only way I know how. So anyway, back to you.
And Claire, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. If not, we can also turn it over to Antonio. He has a question.
Yeah, I think that I just want to thank Frances, which she spent a lot of time to gather, and she really told us a lot of experience she had worldwide, which is really useful and appreciated. And one thing I would like to address is that, just like Francis mentioned, our board are really young, and we have not only the younger generation, but we also have someone who is a professional but with a disability. She is really. I think she is very special. That's the reason why I want to talk more about her. She is the one we met last year who joined our diversity talk for the French Tech event. And she shared as a people with disabilities, how she find a job and how she was valued in the workspace and how her team members support her, and what kind of a resource she got from everyone, and what kind of support she needs from else, not only from the work, but from the society, from the public. And that is reasons why we want to recruit her to our board, because I believe that she's about 30 years old only, but she really experienced and she is willing to share, and she is really want to do some impact change.
I agree. And we really shouldn't be doing any of this if our community is not involved. We need all people with disabilities involved in this. And often we do not see our people with disabilities included till later. And that just doesn't really work for us. So I'm glad you're including people with disabilities, because that's really the only way we can move forward. So thank you.
It's not just, in this case, it's not just including them as a member, but in the leadership in the board. So I think that's one thing that I'm very proud of, that the team in Taiwan actually have that foresight to say, okay, it's not just membership but leadership position that we need to include the diversity of aging and people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
and it often doesn't happen, though. That is not happening. We often see these things being created, and we're not being meaningfully included. So it's very important that people with disabilities be on the board and be part of the membership to make sure our voices are heard. So we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Claire. Sorry.
I think she could be a very good role model because that she is competent. She doesn't feel wrong with her disabilities. She is very confident, and she can step forward to say, "Hey, I can do it. You can do it." I think that is a very important message that we want to deliver to our audience. Yeah.
Well, I have many questions, but I need to find a start.
Yeah.
Just mention that the aging demographics is not something that is taking us by surprise. Many of these data we know it for years. No, it's not. No, it's aging is a constant in our lives. But what I wanted to ask you, Francis, is no. If you look at Taiwan, and if you look at the private sector, the public sector, what maturity do you observe in both? And also considering your experience in how can we enable this in a way that sticks, in a way that actually happens? Because we know people move, and sometimes in the space of accessibility and disability, organizations have back and forwards. How can we actually try to mitigate that and make sure that we are able to do something that in the end reaches results?
Okay, so the question is very multifaceted.
Yeah.
So we can have another whole separate conversation about. But I think fundamentally the reason I feel like Taiwan will be a great country to really test out our hypothesis, which is, that we've been talking about aging and people with disabilities, the kind of a common ground, and that we need innovative solutions. I think I would start with culture, right? I mean, the Taiwan is a country made of, a lot of people, in many cases, originated from China, but then they've been, in Taiwan for many years. But Asia Pacific as a region have a very different attitude towards aging than, say, Western society. So in general, we are very respectful of the aging. We view aging is a good thing. I always add 1 year to my age when I talk to my kids. They hate that because they want to be young, like typical American. But I always want to be old because I get the respect. So there is that, that cultural difference. So when you have countries like Japan, like China or Taiwan or India, they have a cultural respect for aging, then you are starting on the positive already, right? Now, and also the elder care historically is done by families. They don't institutionalize the elders, right? Mm-hmm. So by family, so that they really care and they create an ecosystem and to do that. But the reality is with a diminishing birth rate, which is the other problem, right? You got aging population, diminishing, it's not possible. But because the cultural of care is there, they're going to be the new generation, like Claire's generation. They're going to be confronted with elder care, and they are going to want to look for solutions. And because they're not quite digital native, but they are definitely digital competent. So they're going to look for digital solutions. So to me, and then you look at Taiwan as a country, they've been the most advanced, as you know, semiconductor, creators and manufacturer in the world. So technology is already a thing that Taiwan is very known for, and that their experience exporting the technology has been there. So I think if I sit back and look at long term, and Deborah knows, from the old days, that's from my background and all that, that's all you always have to do is look at what you can do today, but then what is the impact, not just 2 years or 3 years, but 5 or 10 or 20 years from now. So to me, that's why this is a very unique sandbox, so to speak, for putting innovation, what I call the human first innovation in place.
Yeah. So I was smiling when you were talking about the adding 1 year on, because my wife's also from Thailand, and so she always puts a year on my age as well. And so we argue about it because we count from the point of you completed a year, and they count from
the day you're born.
That you're in, the year ahead. So yeah, there are plenty of arguments about that one, and the cultural differences continue. But I think it's really interesting. You're talking about the attitudinal differences, in terms of familial care, but then you've got this demographic pyramid that is going to challenge that, because you've got the balancing of having to work to be able to support pensions, support the state, and so on. So super aging is not just a problem for individuals, the ones that are getting older, or their children or their families, but also the infrastructure of the societies that they live in. So then, the application of technology doesn't just become an issue for those people, but it becomes a mega trend kind of problem that needs that sort of country level, global level approach to be able to solve some of this. So I know you're having the conversations, and also you're wanting to convene people to have these conversations, and you're running an event coming up shortly in about 6 weeks' time. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that and the intent behind that to inculcate this into the conversations that are going on in Taiwan and APAC right now.
Sure, I'll start. Then I'll ask Claire to kind of provide more detail. But on the overall, we think that timing, Deborah, you're the one that actually called out the timing. We think the timing is actually good, not just for Taiwan, but because we're all technologists here, right? I mean, we look at the challenges of super age or people with disabilities or accessibility from the technology angle. We also know, just a year ago, the ChatGPT, the AI just kind of dominated the world. And there is actually a sense of urgency to really, raise the awareness of a technology impact in society and on humanity here and now. So that's why we chose April as a kind of a launch point to introduce this topic. And maybe Claire, you can give them. We have maybe a high level description of our morning agenda and the afternoon agenda. That will give you some sense as to what our focus is.
Yeah, in the morning that I think we will have a more business and concept idea part to tell people, especially in Taiwan. I think many people they might hear digital inclusion, accessibility kind of things, but they don't know the meaning or the definition of this. They might heard from we have a digital affair department, Ministry of Digital Affairs. They also have the guideline, but no one know how to use that guideline for the digital inclusion. And when we start this journey, we start to see, it's really interesting. We got this guideline, but no one know how to use it. And if we have this problem, which means that everybody got this problem in Taiwan. Yeah. So I think that a good thing that Francis and Stella are going to talk about the concept about the diversity, about the innovation, and how we use how important digital inclusion it is. That is the morning session. And in the afternoon, I think that we are going to be more practical and more related to the technology support. So that's the reason why we have Christopher from IAAP and Thomas Logan from Equal Entry to from the very, very practical way to tell people, to tell our audience, if they want to conduct this kind of concept into their organization, how can they do it, and why they have to do that. And we are happy to have L'Oreal, who is interested to share their journey with us. Yeah, especially, I think that is very interesting because when I went to L'Oreal Taiwan, they told me that they have a different position for the branch office. And in Taiwan, they know there are a lot of good technology and good engineers for not only the software, but also the data analysis kind of work. So they position themselves as a tech behind the beauty. Yeah. And also they have a lot of diversity for the beauty. And that is something they want to share with audience. So how they use the tech to make everyone to look pretty.
And Claire,
yeah.
I will just say that I've seen stuff that L'Oreal has been doing over the last few years, and quite a few years now. And I want to applaud what I've seen them doing. So I know they've been doing some cool stuff in the States. I've also saw them talking about these topics in China when I went to China, and I saw them in Canada as well. So I also have been seeing L'Oreal. I'm not connected with that brand, but I've seen them making efforts, and I just appreciate it. So just wanted to agree with you on that one. But go ahead for the day.
Yeah, I think that is very, very, very good feedback from you. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, and I think in between these kind of invited expert speakers, we will have a panel of individuals from Taiwan, companies, from startups to like L'Oreal and all that. Because again, what we want to do is to foster, not just our expert coming in to do kind of preaching, but we really want a dialogue and interaction. So we're going to try to facilitate, we will have a moderated panel with the local government and university and private sector participation. And so this is really just the beginning of the launch. And we will have a book signing, my Chinese book. So it should be interesting. And Deborah, your name is in my book, right? So
yes, thank you so very much. I appreciate everything y'all done. That's just exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's great to have those two-way conversations. There are too many conversations, air quotes, where we fly the experts in or we beam them in.
Yep.
They talk, I talk at people. I disconnect, or I fly off home, and we don't take enough time to actually listen and observe and learn. So I think one of the joys of being there in person, unfortunately I can't be this time around, is you get that offline time to actually observe and have the conversations, and they're really, really valuable. The round tables, the corridor conversations, the snippets of how people do stuff are actually the nuggets of gold that you get by having these kind of conferences. Because yes, you can learn from presentations and so on and so forth, but we also need to learn, as Deborah said at the beginning, there's far too many pale, male, stale people in the business that we need to make sure that there's room for everyone.
Yeah, that conversation is so important, especially for us. we're at the beginning stage. If we want to make this really impact, we have to localize it, and then you can't localize if you don't understand their thinking, their priority, and what we think is important may not mean a thing to them, right? So that kind of dialogue that we're hoping that this kind of April 25th, I mean, Neil, you still need to let us know if we can beam you in,
You can beam me in. You can beam me in.
Right. So, because we know you never stale, you may be pale.
Yeah, I'm pretty pale. It's been raining here since August. Welcome to life in the UK. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. So, Francis, Claire, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think that we could talk forever. And would love to have a bit more time about you talking about your own stuff, Claire. We can probably let's go an extra 5 minutes. We normally record for half an hour, but let's extend it a little and tell us about how you came into this space, because I think that'd be really great.
Yeah, I think that before we call it a day, I think thank you very much, and I like to share my own story. I always tell people that I start to do this. That's only because for the very high or very, very brilliant goal. I do it for myself. Yeah. And I live with the fourth generation's family. The eldest one is my grandmom. Under the same roof. She is 98 now.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. And the youngest twins are 11 months old. So I have to meet more than 6 people over 65 every day. So from them, I observed them, what they need. And just like Francis mentioned earlier, in Asia, especially like a Chinese culture influenced countries, we really want to take care of our elderly. Especially like our grandparents, my parents, we don't want them to send them to the institutions. So they are all at home, and we bring people back to take care of them. And from there, I just like Ed mentioned earlier, the rate of birth is really low. So, for example, like 40 years later, I wouldn't have the service or like the treatment my grandparents, my parents have now. So that's a reason why we start to think, okay, maybe we need a technology to support our life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we cannot wait to do that until then. We have to start from now to do that. And we are designed for the future. We are not designed for now. And that is the core for the team, that we have the mission, and we have the dream for our future. Yeah. That is my personal story about that.
Absolutely. And understanding, the underlying motivation is really key to really understanding why you're involved and the passion for it. So thank you for sharing, Claire. Thank you, Francis. Also need to give thanks to Amazon and MyClearText for keeping us on air, keeping us captioned. Look forward to you joining us and continuing this conversation on social media.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.